Hi everyone, I'm Judy Kramer, the Program Manager for Academic Support at 10,000 Degrees. We really hoped to simply record our back to school so you could see your fellow volunteers' faces and maybe your own. But I made a rookie mistake and I forgot to sign into the Zoom call in a way so we could record. So I'm going to record this now so you can hear the presentation, and I apologize that you don't get to hear other people's voices. So last Tuesday we had our back to school Zoom and we had about 80 volunteers attend. This is the agenda that we followed. Tracy Lanier, our Vice President of External Affairs, kicked it off and gave a huge, giant 10,000 Degrees thank you to every one of you for everything that you've done. I always like to start by showing this slide, which is a 10,000 Degrees overview, just to remind you that you may feel like you're a small drop, an insignificant drop in a student's life, but the students that are touched by 10,000 Degrees, including your students, really do benefit tremendously from the support that you provide. Before we start talking about what you might do this year, let's review and spend a moment talking about the past. Before Shelter in Place, Academic Support had over 200 volunteers supporting 132 classrooms and after-school programs at 22 schools in Marin County. About 2/3 of you volunteered in elementary schools and the remaining 1/3 in middle and high schools. 60 of you were new to our program, while many of you have been with us for 5 or more years, even 20 years. And if you were in elementary school, you were probably assisting in literacy and math. In middle school, you were asked to help in those subjects and as well as science. And in high school, you helped out in these subjects and in AVID classrooms, which is a program. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. I won't go into that here, but if you're interested in more, contact us. Most important, in all of these situations, you were highly valued. The blue bar that has 95% shows that 95% of our teachers rated your impact on students' academic performance as being highly positive. This rating occurs year in and year out. And as you can see, about 87% of volunteers of you rated your impact positively. So if anything, you tend to undervalue what you're bringing to your students. We had the opportunity last spring to try out some ways of supporting students online virtually. And what we're going to do is use these methods this year. You could say last spring was an unintended pilot, and starting as a basis for what we will do this year, and we'll expand and grow. So to give you an idea of what you might do, let me show you some examples. Last spring, some of you joined a teacher's Zoom classroom to understand his or her expectations and then go into breakout rooms to support single or small groups of students. And it's a little hard to read here, but Deborah with the orange background is a coordinator and a volunteer, and these two ladies in the lower corner are also volunteers. This is the teacher. So this is an idea of what a Zoom classroom might look like for you. Others of you, again, this is also using Zoom, but here in the teacher's classroom, she's sharing a view of Google Classroom so that the volunteers, along with the students, could see and understand what the assignments are that volunteers will be asked to support students on. In other cases, I'll get myself out of the way, using shared screen, again in a Zoom setting. On the left, this shows using a Zoom whiteboard, and don't worry if you haven't used it, we can provide some training to show you how to, where a student is showing how he or she worked a math problem with a volunteer, and it looks to me like this happens to be in a Zoom breakout room. So it's going into a Zoom breakout room and using some Zoom tools. On the right-hand side, the student is using a share screen and the camera on their computer to show the volunteer the paper version of what they're working on as a way for the volunteer to see, in effect, look over the student's shoulder just like you could in the classroom and support them. These slides don't show it, but some of you also used educational software that your teachers are using with students, such as Epic, Dreambox, Read 180, and Big Ideas Math. This is great software for teaching. It's also really great software for working with someone virtually. There may be others out there. These are the ones we used last spring, and these are ones that we're looking to employ with you again this year. Like Zoom, we will be offering training on how to log in and to these various softwares and how to access what you need to work with your students. So don't worry if you haven't used them before. Another example, and my apologies that this is small, but we had some volunteers work with a middle school journalism class. And what this slide is showing is a Zoom classroom. It looks like a breakout room here. And in this instance, the student is sharing what they have created for the journalism class with, I believe they interviewed some volunteers and got volunteer input. Examples of some one-on-one tutoring outside the classroom that you did. And please know that we will get parent permission before you work outside of school to protect you and the student and have clarity around expectations, especially from the student side. So some examples are, in some cases, volunteers served as a motivator, a check-in. In some cases, this was done by phone, just how you doing? Is there anything you need support with? Which might be academic. As you can see from the list here, it might be organizational and other things. In elementary school, we had a couple volunteers work supporting students on spelling and vocabulary, or reading with students. In middle and high school, and if you know teenagers and their brains, they need help with organization. I can speak personally as the parent of a son who really struggled with that. So we did have some volunteers that provided support around that, and that might be help with time management, organizing what are your school assignments, how are you going to get them done, let's set a timetable, a calendar, and let's meet again to see how you're doing and so forth, other ways to hold them accountable, as well as organizing their work using Google folders and other tools. Also in middle school, as we showed examples, there were some folks that went into classrooms using breakout rooms and shared screens and work whiteboards, in this instance to help in math. And in one case, a student was failing math. He had an F, and the tutor helped him or her, I'm not sure which, finish and turn in all the missing and incomplete assignments, which meant he finished the course or she finished the course with an A. So again, organizational management, and I'm assuming perhaps some math skills as well. In high school, we had the unique opportunity to partner some of you with high school students who are in other 10,000 Degrees programs. The instances shown here, I believe, were 12th graders. In at least one instance, the student's in Sonoma, while the volunteer lives in San Rafael. So that was pretty exciting because they probably wouldn't have driven to work with one another. In this way, they could connect. As you can see in the top bullet, one volunteer helped a student with essay writing. I believe he was also in a literature class where he had to do some other writing and helped with that. In another case, it was help with calculus, and in another case with chemistry. So before I go to coordinator updates, I'll just pause and remind you, those are some examples. That doesn't mean that's exclusively what we will be doing this year, but we will be only offering virtual support. So that gives you some flavor for what we may be coming to you with. Unfortunately, the coordinators aren't here to give their updates, so I'll do my best. We started with Lisa Pavlovsky, who covers all of our Novato schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. And as you may have heard, all of these schools will be online at least through October 4th. She has reached out to ask teachers and principals what their needs are for volunteers and how we might assist. Realistically, we're thinking that we don't have that information till late September, and this is a theme that you will see throughout the other updates I'm about to share with you. Teachers are just really, really busy. They always are at the start of the school year, but usually they're busy till Labor Day, and then they can start talking to us. This year they need a little more time, so it will be late September. At Loma Verde, we will be focusing especially in second grade on reading and other elements of literacy. At Hamilton, they're looking for people to volunteer one-on-one with students in all grades. And again, Lisa doesn't have updates from other schools, but she will let you know. Also at the end of September, we will be surveying students who are in the other 10,000 Degrees programs, and in particular their 8th and 12th graders, and see what their needs are for support and get back to you. Doug Brown, who covers Bahia Vista and Laurel Dell in San Rafael, gave these updates. August 24th was the first day of school, also remote learning, and that will stay in place until at least October 4th or 5th. Short Elementary, if you haven't followed the news, Short Elementary isn't open as a school anymore, and most of those students were subsumed into Laurel Dell. Pepe Gonzalez was the principal for both schools last year, so beyond the geographic change of where they're going to school, it's not a big change for the students. As Doug notes here, if any of our schools reopen in person in San Rafael, 10,000 Degrees academic support tutors won't be allowed on campus for at least the fall semester. And again, we're going to stay that way off campus for the whole year. This is consistent with guidelines from the California Department of Education, as well as restrictions that San Rafael City Schools have put in place. A little drum roll, Monica Golden is back from medical leave. She's all better. She thanked everyone for your warm wishes and support, and she's really excited to be back. I can share, we're really excited to have her energy and her keen insights back. So Monica gave us an update on her schools, which are Coleman, San Pedro, and Venetia Valley. There were several principal changes. At Coleman, Mike Taylor does remain principal of Coleman, which is great. And he's also going to be principal of the virtual learning option that San Rafael is offering for kindergarten through 12th graders. This was an option for families to say, regardless of whether my child's school reopens with on-campus learning, I want my child to learn virtually for the whole year. At San Pedro, Mimi Melodia retired, and she was replaced by Christina Hopkins. I had the opportunity to meet Christina in a meeting recently, and I think you'll really like her. She has good energy, keen insights. I think she'll be a great addition. Probably it's no surprise to you when I share it. She was clearly drinking from the fire hose of information. And being virtual means it's harder for her to learn and get up to speed. But I think once she does, she'll be a great asset. At Venetia Valley, Juan Rodriguez was replaced as principal by Apolinar Quesada. And Apolinar, if you didn't see this in the paper, goes by Paul most of the time. And he moved from Arizona and previously worked in San Francisco Unified. So he has some knowledge of Bay Area schools. We haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but I hear good things, and I think our Venetia Valley volunteers will find they're in good hands. Also, Venetia Valley volunteers might want to know that our beloved literacy specialist, Rebecca Hornthal, took a position at a San Francisco middle school. So our loss is their gain. Amy Carrera, and I'll get myself out of the way, gave us updates on her schools, which are Davidson Middle and San Rafael and Terra Linda High. Again, first day of school for both was in late August. At Davidson, Principal Barb Marcucci has been promoted to be Assistant Superintendent of Business Services at San Rafael City Schools. And Bob's an amazing principal and person. So we're really excited for him, although we're really sorry to lose him at Davidson. Susan Akram, the assistant principal, will serve as the interim principal. And I believe I read that the school will be posting for the principal position shortly. The teachers are getting to know their students, and as a repeat as at our other schools, Amy hopes to know more by late September. At the high schools, we are getting some requests for tutor support in the AVID tutorials, Advancement via Individual Determination. If you haven't supported students in this program and would like to know more, please contact us. I'm not going to go into detail here. There is a training involved to help you. And Amy's going to reach out to all volunteers that have volunteered with or tutored in this before within the week. And again, if you think you might like to join, contact her or me. As elsewhere, we also will be polling the students who are 8th graders and 12th graders in 10,000 Degrees programs, and hope to know what their needs might be by the end of September. Okay, last but not least, Deborah Fletcher updated us on schools in West Marin, known as Shoreline Unified, Sausalito Marin City, and also Tam High. And you can see here, she's listed out the start dates, all remote learning. Bayside MLK has delayed its start to September 8th and has applied for a waiver to start in person. As you may recall, they did do in-person instruction last spring. So of all our schools, they're one of the ones that's furthest along in really having the protocols in place and small numbers of school students to be able to operate this way. That said, and I'll say it again, we will not be on campus at Bayside MLK. We will support students online, virtually, if that works out for the school. In case you've missed it in the paper, the unification of the Sausalito Marin City School District is underway. And I believe I last read that there's a plan expected by November. So we'll keep you updated as we hear more. And I know Fred and Deborah will as well. And we're working with our 10,000 Degrees Fellows at Tam High and Tamales High to find ways to support seniors, so 12th graders who are in the 10,000 Degrees programs. There may be other opportunities that occur at these high schools, but that's where we're going to start for now because we think we add the most value that way. So those are our coordinator updates. And we then switched to some frequently asked questions that we've heard from you. So I'll do my best to ask myself and respond. So can I go to campus and see if I'm needed in person? Please, please, please do not. We know that you care about your schools and your students, but schools have, especially now, even more than in the spring, very rigorous safety and health protocols. So if you would like to know if you're needed, please contact one of us, or if you are in contact with your teacher, ask, but do not go to campus. Will we be virtual all year long? Yes. 10,000 Degrees academic support is just going to stay virtual. It helps to protect your health and the health of teachers and students, and I think will provide higher quality support to our students because we won't be stopping and starting. We'll just be virtual, and we will do what we can do online. If you decide that virtual is not your thing, or you don't feel capable and don't want to try it, that's absolutely fine. Totally your decision. And please let us know if that is your decision, and we'll just make a note to contact you next August. Are we offering our services in kindergarten through 12th grade? And the answer here is yes. Someone asked, in essence, what value can I add in kindergarten, because it usually is one of the most hands-on grades. And know that we did have a volunteer or two this spring support kindergarten. I think they did some things with students in breakout rooms. The teacher took students on virtual field trip, and the volunteer went along. They celebrated some student birthdays, and the volunteer participated. So it's not the same, but there are ways that you can connect with students even as young as kindergarten. Can I work with my usual teacher at my usual school with my usual students? As always, we will do our best to support you and your preferences. I can't promise that what we will offer you will in fact be your usual school or teacher. And that depends primarily on whether the school you're normally at feels it's in a position to have volunteers work virtually. While teachers last spring learned to use Zoom classrooms and Google classrooms and lots of technology and get their students involved, we're finding that not all of them learned or have figured out how best to deploy a volunteer in their classroom. And so for your sake and theirs, if they don't feel comfortable with this, we may not be working with them this year, and we'll place you elsewhere. That said, if you do end up working with a teacher and or students not at the school that's been your normal one this year, we will ask again next August, and assuming that school is fully in session by then, will not have made a commitment that can't be undone this year, and we definitely will be open to replacing you back where you normally tend to be. If you did tutor with us during shelter in place last spring, can you work with the same teacher and or student? Absolutely. As my answer to the other question, we will do our absolute best to place you with your first preference. Again, a lot depends on how comfortable the teacher and the student feel working with someone virtually, and whether, the obvious thing, but whether what you bring to the table in terms of your expertise and background seems like a really good fit. What devices do I need to tutor virtually, such as an iPad or desktop computer, and does it work on a cell phone? It really works best if you have access to an iPad, a laptop, or a desktop computer with a microphone and a camera. We did have some volunteers, especially those just checking in on a quick how you doing, that were able to do it over a cell phone. But that really isn't the most robust way to do it. How can I stay informed? We worked really hard last spring to provide information to you that we knew was accurate. And that's what we're going to continue to do this year. So I know there's a lot in the paper, and in my opinion, some of it is still speculation and not fact, because schools are only just now opening, and we won't know the facts around how they will be able to operate until they've been able to be open for a couple weeks and try things out. So your best bet, I think, is to check the websites of your schools or your school districts, and we will provide links to those, or contact us. And also we will be doing a weekly e-blast to all volunteers, and week by week we'll update you on what we know. So those were the questions that were posed. If you have other questions and they aren't answered in the FAQs here or in our email, please contact us. We are delighted that you're willing to join us, and can't say thank you enough for all the support you gave us last spring and all the support you're giving us now. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you virtually soon.